Hi, I'm Dr. Samuel Andrews, a cardiologist at St. Mary's Hospital, and I'm going to tell you one of the most dramatic and shocking stories from all my years as a doctor. My life was perfect. I was a respected cardiologist, married to the wonderful Lisa, and a proud father of two incredible sons. Our family routine was calm and happy. Everything seemed in order until that fateful night. It was a quiet and still night. Lisa was reading a book beside me in bed, and I was almost drifting off, enjoying some well-deserved rest after a long day at the hospital. The clock beside the bed read 11:30 p.m. when the phone rang. I answered immediately, still groggy from sleep. "Dr. Samuel, we need you at the hospital. It's an emergency," came the urgent voice from the other end of the line. I quickly got up, dressed, and kissed Lisa before leaving. "I'll be back soon, dear," I murmured, trying not to worry her too much. "Samuel, you always say that, but you never come back soon enough," replied Lisa, with a tone of concern and irritation in her voice. "Lisa, it's an emergency. They need me at the hospital," I tried to explain as I put on my coat. "And what about us? We need you too. The boys need you here," she insisted, her eyes filled with anxiety. "I know, Lisa, I know, but it's my job. I have to go," I said, trying to stay calm. "Your job, always your job. What about our family? When will you realize that we're here too, waiting for you?" she countered, her voice trembling with emotion. "Lisa, please understand. It's a young man. He's in critical condition. I can't ignore this," I responded, trying to reassure her with a touch on the shoulder. She pulled away from my hand, her face a mix of frustration and sadness. "And who isn't in critical condition here? I feel like this every time you leave in the middle of the night." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. "I promise I'll do my best to come back as soon as I can. Please, just trust me." She sighed, her eyes fixed on the floor. "Go. But know that I'm tired, Samuel. Very tired." I left home with a heavy heart, feeling the tension in the air. I arrived at the hospital and headed straight to the emergency room. There I found a chaotic scene. The medical team was in full swing, trying to save the life of a young man who had been in a serious car accident. He was in critical condition, fighting for every breath. When I looked at his face, my heart nearly stopped. I recognized Michael, a 19-year-old young man. Michael was the son of my former best friend, John. We had been inseparable for years until an irreconcilable fight drove us apart. My chest tightened at the sight of Michael. Memories of John and the good times we had together came flooding back. But I couldn't afford to hesitate. Michael needed immediate surgery, and I was the only one who could perform it. "Listen up, everyone," I said firmly. "We need to act fast. Every second counts." The nurse beside me, visibly nervous, asked, "Dr. Samuel, how are you feeling? Can we do this?" "Don't worry about me," I replied. "Let's save this life." As I began to examine Michael more closely, I noticed something strange. There was a recent scar on his chest, indicating recent heart surgery. I asked one of the nurses about his medical history, and she mentioned that there were no records of recent surgery in the system. "This isn't right," I murmured. "Does anyone know about this recent scar?" One of the nurses, visibly concerned, replied, "Doctor, it seems he underwent an unregistered procedure. We suspect it's an illegal cardiac device." My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. I had to decide quickly: operate on Michael and try to save his life, or report the irregular situation involving the illegal cardiac device. Any delay could be fatal for him. What to do? Save that life or first report the irregularity, knowing it could delay the operation and potentially cost the young man his life? I looked around and saw the medical team ready, waiting for my decision. There was no time to waste. Michael was on the brink of death, and I knew that every second counted. "Prepare the operating room immediately," I ordered, trying to hide my nervousness and the storm of feelings haunting me. Nurses and technicians began to move quickly, preparing everything for the surgery. I approached Michael and held his hand for a brief moment. "We're going to save you, kid," I whispered, more to myself than to him. As I prepared for the surgery, one last image of John came to my mind. He would trust me to save his son's life, and I would give everything I had to honor that trust, even though our friendship had ended bitterly. The anesthesiologist, Dr. Collins, approached and asked, "Samuel, are you sure you're ready? This situation is complicated." "Yes, Collins," I replied. "We have no other choice. Let's begin." As the team prepared, I felt a wave of determination wash over me. I needed to focus, forget the past, and save Michael. Every move, every decision would be crucial. "Doctor, the patient is ready," one of the nurses reported, snapping me out of my thoughts. "Great. Let's go, team. We have a young man to save," I said, taking a deep breath and starting the surgery. The pressure was immense, and the responsibility weighed heavily on my shoulders. But in that moment, I could only think of one thing: doing my best to give Michael a chance to survive. John and I grew up together in the same neighborhood. He was a smart kid, always full of energy and a bit mischievous. I, on the other hand, was more reserved and focused on my studies. Still, we became inseparable friends. We spent our days playing ball in the street and dreaming about the future. But as we grew older, our paths began to diverge. I chose to pursue medicine, inspired by a desire to help people. John, however, took a different path. He got involved with the wrong crowd and entered the world of crime. Gradually, he became a dangerous and unscrupulous man, someone who did whatever it took to maintain his position of power. His actions made him a feared and respected figure in the criminal community. I remember times when I tried to convince John to choose a different path, but he always said he was just trying to survive in a cruel world. Back to the present. As Michael was under observation after surgery, I felt a pang in my heart seeing John enter the hospital. He was visibly desperate, which was unusual for someone who was normally so controlled. "Samuel, I need you to save my son," John said, his voice trembling with emotion. "Whatever you need to do, break the protocols if necessary." "John, I've already performed the surgery," I replied calmly. "But there's something I need to report. The device in Michael's heart is illegal. I can't overlook this." John approached, his eyes boiling with anger and fear. "You don't understand, Samuel. If you report this, not just I, but many people will suffer the consequences. An entire network will collapse." "Network? What are you talking about, John?" I asked, trying to stay calm. He ran his hands through his hair, visibly agitated. "It's more complicated than you think. It's not just about Michael. There's much more at stake here. John, I am a doctor. I have an ethical and legal duty to report these things," I argued, feeling the weight of the situation increasing. "If you do this, you'll destroy lives, Samuel, not just mine. You know what I'm capable of," he said, the implicit threat clear in his voice. "Are you threatening me now?" I asked, feeling the tension escalate. "I'm not threatening you. I'm trying to make you understand the gravity," he replied, his eyes fixed on mine. "We're talking about something much bigger than the two of us." I looked at John and realized he was nervous in a way I had never seen before. It wasn't just about his son. It was something much bigger and more dangerous. "Are you involved in an organ trafficking scheme, John?" I asked, trying to connect the dots. He looked away for a moment, confirming my suspicions. "I can't tell you anything more. I just ask that you consider the consequences before you act," he said, his voice now quieter and more controlled. "Do you have any idea what you're asking of me? If I don't report this, I'll be compromising my career and professional ethics," I countered, trying to make John see the seriousness of the situation. "Samuel, please," John pleaded, his voice now filled with desperation. "He's my son. I would do anything for him. If you were in my place, you would do the same." I sighed deeply, feeling the weight of his words. "I understand your desperation, John. But that doesn't justify what you've done. You put your son's life at risk with this illegal device." "I had no choice," he murmured, his voice breaking. They said it was the only way to save his life. Who are they, John? I pressed, trying to get more information. He shook his head, avoiding my gaze. I can't tell you. I just know there are many people involved. If this comes to light, it will ruin everything. The reality of the situation crashed down on me like a heavy weight. If I reported this, I could expose an entire network of criminal activities involving various professionals from different hospitals. It was clear that by operating on Michael, I had become involved in something much bigger than a simple medical procedure. I'll think about it, John, I finally replied, knowing that my decision would have significant repercussions. John nodded, relieved. Thank you, Samuel. Just take good care of my son, he said before leaving the room, leaving me with a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts and emotions. As I watched John leave, I realized I was immersed in an ethical and moral dilemma that could change my life and the lives of many others. The responsibility to decide the next step weighed heavily on my shoulders, and I knew that whatever choice I made would have profound consequences. When I returned home that night, my heart was heavy. I knew I needed to tell Lisa what was going on. I entered the house quietly, trying not to wake anyone, but Lisa was waiting for me in the living room, her face marked with concern. Samuel, what's going on? She asked, her voice trembling. You rushed out in the middle of the night and now you look like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders? I sighed, sitting down beside her. Lisa, there's something I need to tell you. It's about John's son, Michael. She stared at me, waiting. What happened? I operated on him, Lisa. He was in critical condition after a car accident. But I found out he has an illegal cardiac device implanted. And John, he's involved in something much bigger, something dangerous. Lisa went pale. And you got involved in this? Samuel, this could put our family at risk. I know, Lisa, but what could I do? He was dying. I couldn't just turn away. She stood up abruptly, anger and fear mixing on her face. You always want to save everyone, but what about us? What if something happens to our children because of this? I would never put you in danger on purpose, I replied, trying to calm her, but I couldn't let the boy die. Samuel, we need to think about our safety. What if John comes after us? What if this brings more trouble? She pressed on. Lisa, I promise I will do everything in my power to keep our family safe, but I also need to do what's right. In the following days, the tension between us only grew. Lisa was worried, and honestly, so was I. The arguments became more frequent and intense. Samuel, this is tearing us apart. You need to find a solution. We can't live with this constant fear, Lisa said, tears streaming down her face. I know, Lisa, but I'm trying to find a way out. Trust me, it's not easy, I replied, trying to console her. Things got even more complicated when an investigative reporter showed up at my office. Dr. Samuel Andrews? He asked with a sharp look. I'm Mark Thompson from the Chronicle. I'm investigating a network of illegal medical devices. I heard you recently operated on a patient with one of these devices. How did you know about that? I asked, keeping my calm. I have my sources, he replied. I'm here to offer protection for your family in exchange for exclusive information on the case. We can ensure your safety, but we need your cooperation. I can't just give away that information, I firmly refused. It involves many lives and my own professional ethics. Dr. Andrews, think about your family's safety. We can guarantee that nothing will happen to them, Mark insisted. Politely declining, the reporter's visit only heightened my concern. I decided to search the hospital records to better understand what was going on. I needed answers about Michael and what else was involved. I spent hours in the records room, searching for Michael's file. Finally, I found it. There were all the details of his previous visits, but nothing about the illegal device. It was as if someone had erased that information. Meanwhile, at the hospital, the pressure was mounting. I began to notice looks and whispers among my colleagues. Some doctors I respected were involved in the use of unauthorized devices. They started pressuring me to keep silent. "Samuel, you need to understand," Dr. Harris, one of my colleagues, said gravely. "If you speak up, we all go down. It's not just your career at stake, but many of ours." "I can't just ignore what I've seen," I replied firmly. "That goes against everything I believe as a doctor." "Then think carefully," he retorted, leaving the room. Public pressure also began to manifest. Journalists surrounded the hospital, trying to pry any details about the case. I maintained my integrity, but my family felt the weight. Lisa was increasingly anxious, and our children sensed that something was wrong. One night, as I tried to relax at home, Lisa sat beside me. "Samuel, this is tearing us apart. I need you to tell me that everything will be okay." I looked into her eyes, feeling the pain and uncertainty. "I promise I will do whatever it takes to protect our family. But I also need to do what's right." She nodded, holding my hand. "We're in this together. I just hope we can get through it." The situation was becoming more tense, and I knew I needed to make a decision soon. But every choice I made seemed to drag me deeper into this abyss of uncertainties and dangers. I was determined to find a way out of this without compromising my principles or my family's safety. I was at the hospital, trying to keep a level head amidst the mounting pressure. Michael's recovery was underway, but something didn't feel right. There was a tension in the air, a sense that something terrible was about to happen. That's when I noticed a nurse whom I didn't immediately recognize. She seemed to be tinkering with the equipment around Michael in a way that made me suspicious. "Nurse, what are you doing?" I asked, approaching slowly. She looked at me, visibly surprised and somewhat nervous. "I'm just adjusting the monitors, doctor." Something about her behavior didn't sit right. "These monitors don't need adjustments," I replied, trying to remain calm. She hesitated for a moment before continuing to fiddle with the equipment. That's when I realized what she was trying to do. Sabotage Michael's recovery. Without a second thought, I grabbed her arm. "Stop right now," I said firmly. She tried to break free, but I held on to her tightly. "You're trying to harm the patient. Who sent you here?" "You don't understand, doctor," she said, finally stopping her resistance. "There are powerful people involved. If you report me, they'll come after you and your family." My heart raced. I knew she was telling the truth. John's threats echoed in my mind. I let go of her arm, but didn't let her move away from Michael. "Who are these people?" I asked, trying to get more information. "I can't say. They would find me. They would kill me," she said, her voice trembling. "If you really care about your life, you need to help me protect Michael," I responded. "I can help you, but I need your cooperation." She hesitated, but finally nodded. "Okay, I'll do what you ask." Meanwhile, at home, things were falling apart. My son was being bullied at school. He came home one day, tears streaming down his face. "Dad, they're calling me the son of the corrupt doctor." "What's going on?" he asked, the pain evident in his eyes. I tried to explain as best as I could, but the truth was harsh. "There are bad people trying to hurt us because I'm trying to do the right thing. But I promise I'll protect our family." Lisa was at her breaking point. "Samuel, I don't know how much longer I can take this. The threats, the constant fear. I don't know if I can keep going like this. Please, Lisa, we need to be strong. We'll get through this together," I pleaded, feeling desperation welling up inside me. I'm considering divorce," she finally said, tears in her eyes. "I can't live with this constant fear anymore." My world crumbled. "Lisa, please don't. I'll do whatever it takes to end this. But we need to stay together." She didn't respond, just walked out of the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts. Back at the hospital, hostility continued to rise. Some colleagues began to avoid me, whispering behind my back. The atmosphere was heavy, and I knew I was being watched. One night, while reviewing Michael's records, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned quickly and saw the same nurse, now visibly frightened. "Doctor, they know I talked to you." "I'm in danger," she whispered. "Stay calm. I'll protect you. But we need to expose this," I replied, trying to reassure her. "If we do that, many innocent people could get hurt," she said, her voice trembling. "I know, but if we do nothing, more lives will be destroyed," I replied, determined. As pressure mounted from all sides, I knew I was in the midst of a storm. My family was suffering, my career was on the line, and Michael's life depended on my actions. But I was determined to find a way out, to protect those I loved, and to expose the truth, no matter the cost. The fight had only just begun, and I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The situation completely spiraled out of control when news of the illegal device implanted in Michael reached the media. The pressure became unbearable, and a public hearing was scheduled to discuss the allegations and expose the failures in the healthcare system. I knew it was my moment to speak the truth, but fear and tension consumed me. The hearing room was packed. Reporters, doctors, lawyers, and ordinary citizens were present, eager to hear what I had to say. I sat there, heart pounding, waiting for my turn to speak. When I was finally called, I took a deep breath and began to reveal the truth. "Ladies and gentlemen," I started, my voice steady, "I am here today to expose the truth about the illegal device that was implanted in Michael. This device is part of a larger network of corrupt and dangerous practices that endanger lives every day." As I spoke, I could see the audience's reactions. Some were shocked, others furious, but I knew I had to press on. These unauthorized devices are being used in hospitals across the country without proper approval processes. This is not just a matter of medical ethics, it is a matter of public safety. That's when I was interrupted by one of the doctors present. Dr. Harris, whom I knew was involved, stood up and confronted me. "Samuel, you're trying to ruin the careers of many good doctors here. We were only trying to help patients in ways the official system doesn't allow." "Harris, you know that's not true. We're putting lives at risk for profit and convenience. This has to stop." The discussion grew heated, but the real crisis began when the monitors around the hearing room started flashing. Within seconds, all screens displayed secret emails between doctors and hospital administrators, including mine. Hackers had breached the system and were exposing our most private communications. Chaos erupted. Everyone began murmuring and pointing, and I knew the situation had escalated. I rushed out of the room, trying to figure out who could be behind this. That's when I received an anonymous text message. "We know everything. Stop now, or your family will suffer the consequences." I knew someone close to me was betraying my trust. I started suspecting everyone around me, but the most painful discovery was realizing John was involved deeper than I had imagined. That night, John confronted me. "Samuel, you need to stop. You're messing with powerful people. If you continue, I won't be able to protect you. And your family. Well, you know what could happen. John, I can't go on like this. People are dying because of these devices. I need to expose the truth. If you do that, Samuel, not only will you suffer the consequences, but everyone around you. I tried to warn you. Now I'm demanding you stop." I stared into John's eyes, feeling a mix of anger and fear. "Are you threatening me? I'm warning you. If you don't cooperate, I can't guarantee anyone's safety." The tension between us was palpable. I knew John wasn't bluffing. He had the means and influence to follow through on his threats. But I also knew I couldn't just give in. I went home that night with my mind in turmoil. Lisa looked at me with concern. "Samuel, what happened? They're threatening our family. John, the hackers, everyone. I don't know who to trust, but I can't give up." "We're with you," she said, holding my hand. "But you need to be careful. We can't afford to lose you." The following days were a constant battle. Journalists kept hounding me, and my family was on high alert. We received more threats, this time more explicit. Messages left at our door made it clear we were being watched. One afternoon, as I tried to gather more evidence at the hospital, I was approached by one of my colleagues, Dr. Thompson. "Samuel, you need to stop. They know everything. They're exposing emails, files, everything. You won't get out of this without damage." "Thompson, I'm trying to protect lives. I can't turn a blind eye to this." "And you think I want to? But think about your family. They're in danger. You're in danger." His words hit me hard. I knew he was right, but retreating would mean betraying my principles. That night another message came, this time directly to my phone. It was John again. "Samuel, last chance. Stop, or I'll make sure everyone pays the price. You know I can do it." I felt a lump in my throat. I was caught between the truth and my family's safety. But looking at Lisa and our children, I knew I couldn't live with this constant fear. I decided I needed to do something. I gathered all the evidence I had, including the emails exposed by the hackers, and prepared for the next hearing. I knew it would be my last chance to expose everything and try to protect those I loved. When the hearing began, I was ready. I stepped up to the podium, looked at the crowd, and took a deep breath. "Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to tell the whole truth. Not just about the illegal device, but about the network of corruption threatening the integrity of our healthcare system." The courtroom was packed, and silence hung heavy as I stood up to speak. I felt all eyes on me, knowing that what I was about to say could change everything. I took a deep breath, feeling the gravity of the moment. "Ladies and gentlemen, I am here today to reveal the truth. The truth about the illegal device implanted in Michael, and the truth about a system that failed him and many others." Murmurs started, but I pressed on, my voice steady. Michael is just one of many victims of a network of corruption and negligence. This illegal device, which nearly took his life, is just the tip of the iceberg. Dangerous practices are happening in our hospitals, putting lives at risk every day. Pausing to scan the room, I saw expressions of shock and anger. I continued, more determined than ever. "These devices are not approved, they are not safe. They are implanted in patients without proper approval processes, without guarantees of safety. And why? For profit, for convenience, because it's easier to bypass the system than to work to improve it." The tension in the room was palpable. The audience's faces were fixed on me, absorbing every word. I have seen firsthand the consequences of these actions. I have seen Michael's life hanging by a thread, and I know he is not alone. There are others out there suffering, risking their lives unknowingly, and that is unacceptable. I looked directly at the other doctors present, including those I knew were involved. "We cannot continue like this. We cannot allow greed and negligence to rule our hospitals. We need profound changes, reforms that ensure patient safety. We need transparency, accountability." My voice intensified with the passion and truth of my words. Every life matters. Every patient deserves to know they are receiving the best possible care, not the most convenient or profitable. We must remember the oath we took, the commitment we made to do good and avoid harm. There was a moment of total silence after my words. Then murmurs and discussions began to spread through the room. Some applauded, others seemed shocked. It was a pivotal moment. After the hearing, John was arrested. Before being taken away, he called me for one last conversation. "Samuel," he said, his voice firm, "I know this will be hard for Michael to understand, but you've been the most honest person I've known. Take care of my son, please." "I will take care of him, John," I replied, touched. "I will ensure he has a better future." Michael recovered well. Over time, he decided to pursue a different path from his father's. "Dr. Samuel, I want to study medicine. I want to help people like you helped me." I felt a wave of pride. "I will support you in every way, Michael. You will be a great doctor." At home, Lisa and I worked to rebuild our bond. The threats and fear had shaken us, but our love was stronger. "We've been through so much, Samuel, but now I see how strong we are together," Lisa said, holding my hand. "Nothing will tear us apart," I replied. feeling the truth of those words. Those involved in the case, including complicit doctors and the corrupt manufacturer, were prosecuted and convicted. Justice was being served. I was invited to join an ethics committee to reform medical device regulation. It was an opportunity to make a difference on a large scale. I reflected on everything that had happened, the lessons I learned about integrity, friendship, and the true meaning of the Hippocratic Oath were deeply ingrained in me. As I watched Michael embark on his journey into medicine, I felt a peace I hadn't felt in a long time. The struggle had been tough, but it was worth it. I was ready to continue fighting for truth and justice always. If you enjoyed this story and would like to hear more moving stories told by me, please leave a comment below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to stay updated. Your participation means a lot to us.